So welcome, everybody. We'll get started. My name is Carol Evans. I work at Utah Housing. We are the state's housing finance agency. We promote homeownership to low and moderate income homebuyers. Our mission is affordable homeownership. And right now it's as crucial as ever. We're all aware of what's happening in the market right now. I'm from Salt Lake. I've been at Utah Housing for about 14 years, been in the industry for about 23 years. This is Brad Silver. He's my associate here today. He came to help me make sure everything was going to run smoothly. He's already saved the day with this clicker, so I'm so glad you're here. Otherwise, this would be a different presentation. So today we're here to discuss preparing students for homeownership. So we're going to kind of walk through that. We're going to talk about how we educate students for home ownership and why it's so crucial to do it earlier than later in life. So I've just got a few reasons right here. It's kind of small. I can read through these of why, some of the benefits or some of the reasons why we want to educate students on home ownership as early as possible. So those who buy a home earlier in life on average have substantially higher housing wealth when they retire. Those between the ages of 25 and 34 who live with their parents are significantly less likely to form independent households and become homeowners compared to those that moved out earlier and either owned or rented. And then a significant decline in the homeownership rate means more of today's young adults be able to build wealth through housing equity the way previous generations did. So there's a significant decline in that, building that generational wealth. So those are pretty impactful long term. So today we're going to talk about helping them set the goal for home ownership to maybe turn these into some more positive outcomes. So let's see. I'm going to go through some different, we're going to first talk about whether the decision is right, how to help them make that decision, then when they're ready, what some of the qualification factors are, and then who can help them when they're ready to go into that, to take that step. So we know that owning a home has always been like the American dream. We know that, like that's where we're at, but we feel like maybe that dream is slipping a little farther away. Right now, it's much more difficult, but with some education and motivation, students will know it's possible. So I'm going to start with a question. How much money do you think you need to come in with a down payment to buy a home? What do you think you need to have saved? How much do you think you need to have?
5%.
How much?
5%.
Did you say 5%? Anybody else? 2 to 3%? All right. Those are really good answers because conventional wisdom, generally when you ask that question, people will say 20%. Mom and dad have always told you 20%. You have to have 20% saved. And that sounds impossible. But yes, you can come in with less than 20%, 10%. If you could come in with 3.5%, sometimes even 0. So if you have a conventional mortgage, the ones that mom and dad are talking about, they require 20% down. But they'll allow you to pay a monthly fee as part of your mortgage payment to bring in even less. Or if you get an FHA loan, a government loan, which is guaranteed by the government, it's only 3.5%. Or if you're a veteran or buying a home as a veteran, you can qualify to buy a home with 0 down payment. And also out there, and I'll talk about this a little bit more at the end, is down payment assistance, where you can find sources to help you give you or lend you those funds for your down payment. So it really is possible. There are ways to get in there without having to save that 20%. All right, so again, I can't even imagine what the young adults think right now. I mean, I can't imagine being 18 or 20 and looking at these home prices right now. Like it must just seem pie in the sky because we've got what? We've got the market. Where are home prices right now in Utah? Where's the interest rates right now? Up here. What's inflation doing? A lot of these kids, younger, also will be having the idea of going to school. What are those prices doing? Higher education. So trying to incur more debt by getting a home on top of that must really seem impossible. Like I can't even imagine. So we're going to take a look at, for home ownership, the first thing we're going to do is they have to set the goal for homeownership. Because if they set a goal, if they decide they want to do it, setting the goal is going to get them there. They're going to have identified what they want, and they're going to identify what they need to get there. So setting a goal is crucial for high school students. We know this. Oh, I was also going to just let you know, I meant to say this in my introduction. What I'm focusing on mainly, or this information will be applicable to strand 5, standard 5 or strand 5? Standard 5, strands 2, 3, and 4, or vice versa. 5 and then 2, 3, and 4 is what we're looking at. So first of all, we're going to be looking at goals for these students to help them set the goals for homeownership. That's the way they're going to get there. To set that earlier than possible, let them know it's possible. So we know that it's going to teach them direction, motivation, and a sense of purpose. It's going to develop in them patience, confidence, and decisiveness. What it's going to help them do, what it's going to develop life skills like time management, resilience, and accountability. It's going to help them prioritize, keep focus, and track progress. So these are the benefits the goals are going to teach them overall. But for homeownership, the goals, the 2 most important goals I think that they can work towards and skills they can develop are budgeting and saving. Because by saving, they're going to be able to work towards getting that down payment. They're going to be able to work towards having moving costs. They're going to work towards having the capacity to afford a home. Budgeting is going to help them get there. Not only is budgeting going to help them with their saving, budgeting is also going to prepare them to live with a house payment, insurance, taxes, plus all of their other things like car payments and savings. So those would be the 2 most crucial skills or goals that young students or young adults would need to develop or work towards or identify. Let's say they have to identify for buying a home. All right, but we know buying a home is confusing for everyone, no matter the age. Old or young, whether you've done it before or not. So that's where planning, careful planning is going to come in, that goal setting, and then education. So that's what we're talking about today also, is educating them about the process of homeownership. So to help them decide if it might be for them or might not, we're going to weigh the pros and cons of homeownership versus renting and leasing a homeownership. So let me just start right off the bat. What do you see? We'll first look at renting and leasing. What do you see as the pros or cons of renting and leasing over homeownership? Like, what would be some ideas that you'd have about that?
If something breaks, you don't have to fix it.
Maintenance. The landlord is going to be responsible. Any other things that you might think renting might be better than homeownership? Anything?
It's cheaper than homeownership.
Overall, it may be cheaper, yes. But also right now we know that in Utah, rental prices are matching, if not exceeding, mortgage payments. So that is, depending on the market, yes. Any cons, do you think? Anything that maybe, all right, so we'll take a look.
You're not building like your network.
Exactly. All right, so let's take a look at this. We've got pros and cons. So the pros of renting and leasing: flexibility. If you need to relocate, if you want to up and move, it's much easier to just be on the move. Lower upfront costs. You're coming in with what? A deposit and maybe moving costs over a down payment, and then all of the costs associated with the mortgage or with getting a loan. You're not responsible for maintenance. That's it. So you're living in someone else's house. So the landlord is typically responsible for maintenance and upkeep. And you may find something that's furnished or has utilities included. So those are all great benefits of renting and leasing. Some of the cons of renting and leasing: you're not building wealth. You're building wealth, you're just building it for someone else. Your payments are going to someone else. They're not going to result, the end result will not be wealth or ownership for you. So that is building wealth. Minimal control over the environment. Again, you're living in someone else's house. Good morning. Welcome. You're living in someone else's house, so you can't update it. Maybe you can't paint it. Maybe you can't keep it to your preferences. You're really just allowed to live there. And then instability or eviction. So what if your landlord decides to raise the rent? It's not going to be as stable. They're probably going to raise it maybe every year. Or what if their daughter finishes college and comes home and needs a place to live? They can send you on your way and put your daughter there. So it's a little less stable, and it can result in eviction also. So if you're not paying your rent, of course, they can send you on your way. All right, so now let's turn the tables. Instead of looking at the pros and cons of renting and leasing, what would you maybe guess or identify as pros and cons of owning over renting and leasing? Any ideas or any thoughts? So we can go through and take a look. So
They're like opposites of each other.
a lot of these are going to flip, you're going to see. All right, so pros of owning: equity and building wealth. So real estate typically appreciates over time. So you're building equity in your home. Over time, you can leverage that equity. You can leverage it either towards updating your house, maintaining your house, or upgrading your house as your needs grow. How about controlling your environment? Now it's your house. So you can update it, you can remodel it, you can paint it, you can do what you want with your yard. It is now yours. You have that control. Let's see, potential for appreciation. Tax benefits. So what about all the interest you're paying towards your home? Tax deductible at the end of the year. And house payments usually stay pretty close. So here's that more stable, not the instability we were looking at. Home prices, if you have a fixed mortgage, they're going to stay relatively even over the life of your loan. And they're all going to you. All right, cons. It's going to require higher upfront costs. You're going to be dealing with that down payment, property taxes, maintenance costs. You have less flexibility. So if you do have to up and move for work, it might take you a minute to have to sell that house. And then we have maintenance. There's always going to be something that needs fixing, always. And then if you don't make the mortgage payment, your house could be taken by the bank. We'll talk about that as collateral in a minute, but they could take that house, they could sell it to make sure they get their money back. And that could also damage your credit. All right, let's see, I'm getting a little funny error here. There we go. All right, so I'm also going to show you some additional benefits to homeownership on top of all of those. Provide stability for families. So once you get your family into a home, you're going to establish your social, your religious, political, civic, those networks. You're going to start putting down roots and start providing real stability for your family. Building self-esteem, like you've really accomplished something big. This is something to be proud of. And then it improves neighborhoods. Homeowners typically invest more in their properties. They're more interested in their neighborhoods because the neighborhood is theirs. That's where that curb appeal comes in. They want it to be better because it's where they live. And it benefits the economy. Let me look at the statistic I had. Up to half of the national spending is on home-related goods. So whether it's home-related goods, whether it's new construction providing jobs, or whether it's increasing the tax base in your neighborhood, or the or local income in your neighborhood. And a funny stat, I'll just give you a funny stat that I was told once by a friend of mine. Number one reason, he told me, that, and so this is what I was told, that millennials bought a home was so their dog had a yard. So there's always that. There's always a reason to find a home and for a pro to have home ownership over living in someone else's property. So home ownership is possible. There are ways for this, and there's reasons to do it. It is possible, and we'll talk more about that. So how do you know? You have your student who's now decided, okay, I'm going to set a goal for home ownership. I'm convinced. And this is going to be the right thing for me. Everybody's situation is different. Priorities are different. But once they've decided they want to do it, how do they know they can qualify to get that mortgage or to get that home? So when you buy a home, typically people have to borrow money, a lot of money. It's a big responsibility for you, and it's a big risk for the person who's going to lend you that money. All right, so it's going to be a risk for them, and they're going to want to make sure their money has been paid back. So they are going to be asking for detailed information about the home buyer. They're going to want to know how you have handled your money in the past. They're going to want to look at your job security. So this is where your credit history and your credit report are going to come in. So let's talk about credit for a minute. If you've ever used a credit card, if you've financed a car, your phone, then most likely you have a credit history. This history shows if you make your payments, and this history shows if you make them on time or if you make them late. The lender is going to get a copy of your credit report from a credit bureau. Credit bureau is a company that is going to prepare this information. They are going to send all of this information to finance companies, to banks, landlords, employers, or anywhere else that you might want to establish credit. And there are 3 major credit repositories. These 3 major companies. You've got Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, and here and on your sheet, probably a little tiny, you've got their contact information. But these are the 3 major companies. And so you have the right to ask for a copy of your credit report. And you have the right to correct any misinformation on it if you've been denied credit. So if you've been denied credit, you can ask the creditor, where did they get the credit report from? Which one of these repositories provided it? And then you have the right to contact them and correct your credit. You also have the right every year to pull one credit report, and that is this bottom one, annualcreditreport.com. There you can go in and you can review and look and see how your credit's going, so you have more information about your situation. All right, so your credit score. Your credit report is going to show your credit score. Your credit score is a quick glance, lend or no lend, level of risk in the transaction grading of your credit. So your creditor, or the person you're applying for credit, is going to look at that. It's going to signify to them your level of risk. It also is what makes it possible for you to receive instant credit. So like if you are at a furniture store or car dealership, it's this credit score that's going to allow you to get that right there on the spot, for them to make a decision on the spot. So you can think of your credit score like your grade. So how do you create a grade for a student? You're going to look at their exams, you're going to look at their homework, you're going to look at their projects, their attendance, or anything else that you feel is important. You're going to weigh those. And you're going to come together in the end and you're going to have a final grade. And that's what your credit score is. It signifies your grade. Credit scores range from 300 to 900. The higher, the better. That's where you want to be. All right, we're going to look at the 5 C's of credit. So the credit score is your quick glance. But then your the creditor is also going to look at 5 main criteria to determine if you're a good risk. So let's look at those. First, we have capital. That's your savings. Do you have a record of saving money? What are your assets? That's going to tell the bank or creditor if you're a safe bet. Capacity. What's your financial capacity? What can you afford? So how much do you have for your house payment and all of your other debt and payments combined? That's your capacity. Then how much do you have left over at the end? Character. So this is your credit history or your reputation. Your character is how much have you borrowed? How have you repaid it? Have you repaid it on time? This includes credit cards. Next is collateral. We talked a little bit about collateral. The home you are buying will be the collateral for your loan. It's what secures that loan. You are putting that house up against the money you are borrowing. So if at any point you fail to make your mortgage payment, not one payment, but over time, if you, for any reason, are not able to maintain payments on that house, the bank has the right to seize that house and sell it to get their money back. So that's what the collateral is, one of the 5 C's of credit. And then we have conditions. Conditions are an overall, they paint an overall picture of the transaction. Its conditions include how much you are asking to borrow, what's the interest rate, What's your job stability? What does the economy look like right now? Is there any pending legislation out there? Just something that the bank is going to use all of the conditions surrounding this transaction to determine the probability that they are going to get repaid. All right, so that's a little bit of a look at credit. So now your student has decided, okay, homeownership. Yeah, I think my credit's pretty good shape. How do I know if I can qualify for a home? So let's look at that. Your credit score isn't the only number involved in buying a house. So we're going to look at some of the other numbers under qualification factors. All right, they are going to, so this is how these ratios, these qualification factors are how the lender is going to determine how much money you can borrow. So let's look at these. First are ratios. We're going to look at the ratios involved in buying a house. The first one is your front end ratio, which is your housing payment. Housing ratio. So it's a housing ratio or front end ratio. This is how much of your income can go towards your house payment, just the house payment. So right now, conventional wisdom, the agencies are saying 31%. So you really want to target your gross, take your gross income, multiply it by 31%. I used an example of $3,000. Just pulled it out of my hat. $3,000 times 31%, you would target a house payment at $930. That's your front end ratio. Then we're going to look at your back end ratio or your debt to income ratio or DTI. That's your overall debt to your income. So what is your house payment plus your car payment plus your credit card payments plus your food plus your insurance? All of these, what's that going to be versus your income? And again, not conventional wisdom, but the agencies currently are looking right now at 43%. They're targeting 43% of your gross income going towards, of your 43% of your income going towards your total debt, and then having the rest left over. So that's what we're looking at, 31 and 43%. Those are your ratios, your front and back end ratio. The last ratio we're going to look at is your LTV, or loan to value. This is basically the purchase price minus the down payment. That is the quick and easy, but it is the amount of the loan compared to the value of the property. So lenders use the LTV to determine the highest amount of money they're going to lend you. So this is where that 3.5% down payment comes in. This is where that 20% down payment comes in. Once you put down 20%, then your loan to value is 80%. If you put in a down payment of 3.5%, your loan to value will be 96.5%. So that's what your LTV or loan to value is. The leftover is your down payment. All right, as you continue through the home buying process, you're going to encounter more and more numbers. So let's run through some of those. You've got your interest rate. The size of your monthly payment will also depend on your interest rate. When you borrow money, you're taking out a loan, and when you repay it, you typically have to pay back more than you borrowed. What you're paying back is the interest. And the interest, again, is based off of your interest rate. Then you have your APR or annual percentage rate. So of course you have your interest rate, but it's not going to tell you the whole story. It's only going to tell you the interest you're going to pay on the amount you borrowed for your home. But the annual percentage rate, the APR, is the true and total cost of your loan expressed in a yearly rate, an annual rate. So it's going to include, yes, your interest rate, but it can include maybe points that you paid for your interest rate, because sometimes you can pay a little bit more upfront to get a lower interest rate. It can include your closing costs, your broker fees. You can essentially finance all of those costs right up front into your loan. And so the APR it means you're basically financing all of those costs as well. But the APR is the true cost of that loan. It's the number you're going to want to look at. So when you are going to get a mortgage, the lender or the broker has to provide you with a loan estimate. And on that loan estimate is going to be your APR. Look at that number. That's the overall cost of what obtaining this mortgage is going to cost you. So shop around, get several loan estimates, and compare those APRs. That's the number you want to look at. All right, and then amortization. The definition of amortization is a reduction in value over time. So your loan will amortize over time. As you make the payments, the reduction in what you owe will lessen over time. It's going to, an amortization schedule is going to show you month by month how much your loan payment will be applied to principal and how much will be applied to interest and what the remaining balance is. And the remaining balance reduces with each payment. So here's a picture of an amortization schedule. I don't know how clear this will be, but you're going to get this with your loan. And a typical loan is 30 years. Very typical, 360 months. So you'll be making 360 payments. And so you're starting up here with payment number 1. Payments are typically made monthly and due on the first day of the month. There's your interest rate, and there's your total payment. That is your principal plus your interest right there. And it's going to break down for you each month how much of that payment is going towards principal and how much is going towards interest. So you'll see at the beginning, people have an $895 housing payment. But their principal in that first payment, only $260 is going towards principal and $635 is going towards interest. And then each payment you make, that adjusts slightly. It goes to $261, $262, $263, $265, $268. Over time, you will see the numbers do this. As your principal lessens, you are owing less interest. The way that you reduce your overall interest costs is by making additional principal payments. You can add more to your principal monthly, annually, whenever you can. The faster you pay down that principal, the faster that interest, the amount you're paying in interest is going to reduce as well. So that's the amortization schedule to see how much is going towards, how your payment is being broken down. All right, let's see, I get this funny little, there we go. All right. Okay, so that's a lot of numbers. I know you've had a lot of information come at you, but you've saved. You've got your credit history in order. You've determined that what your capacity is and that, yeah, I think I can take on a house payment. So you're ready to move forward. Who can help you? Who's the team that's going to help you get that home? I know that I couldn't certainly go out and get a home for myself today. I think I'd need a little bit of help. So we're going to look at the team that can help you. The real estate agent or agent. This is probably the most important person in this transaction that's going to help you. The real estate agent brings together a buyer and a seller. They are going to help you find the properties that are for sale, the properties that are right for you in your price range or size, location. And they are also trained to navigate the entire loan process. So you're going to want them on your side. And I think the best thing you can do is ask around to family and friends. Who have they worked with? Who would they recommend? And they're going to help you go out to different creditors and find the best, that lowest APR and compare transactions for you. All right, next you have an appraiser. The appraiser is going to determine the value of the property. They are going to ensure that what you are paying for that house is fair and appropriate, that you're not getting a bad deal. Next is the broker. They're the ones that help you with the financing. They're going to help you find that loan. They're trained to guide you through the loan application process. So that's who's going to help you find who your creditor is going to be. The lender or your creditor, they're the ones that are going to be financing your home. They're going to be the ones lending you the money. They can be a bank, a credit union, a government entity, even a private person, a private source of wealth. All right, and then title companies. Oh no, who did I miss? Oh, the lender. And then the title company. So the title company, they oversee the closing process. So they are going to make sure all the necessary paperwork is prepared and is handled legally to facilitate this transfer of ownership of that home from the seller to you. So that's the team that you want to have put in place. All right. So we know it takes a lot of work to get a home. We've evaluated finances. Students have set the goal and have budgeted and saved. They've looked for the right home and they've put together the right team to get them there. There's nothing quite as exciting as getting that home. It's an amazing accomplishment. And what you've done over time, that equity is going to grow. You are going to start building wealth. You've opened the door to generational wealth. What you are providing for the generations ahead of you with equity that you're going to build in that home is a wonderful asset. And that is the biggest key, is how that house can be passed down to your children. All right, so how did they get there? Set the goal, developed a good credit history. They knew the right people to talk to. So no matter what, the key is educating yourself. One last thing as I wrap up that we'll talk about are education and down payment assistance. So something for extra credit that students can do or that is available to anybody is home buyer education. There are an abundance of home buyer education courses available out there. Just right online through any of the agencies. HUD has a whole list. I know Freddie Mac offers a great home buyer course. Utah Housing, right on our website, we list links to all of HUD's approved home buyer education courses. They are great. They will walk you through all of this, and they'll also walk you through information you'll need to know after you purchase the home. Like all the servicing information for your home. All right, and then lastly, down payment assistance. I feel like down payment assistance sometimes is a little bit of a secret. I was at a conference earlier this year, and the woman speaking gave a statistic that kind of blew me out of the water. She worked with the Urban Institute to do some data over homeowners in the last year. She said 75% of homeowners in the previous year were eligible for some sort of down payment assistance and didn't use it. So there is down payment assistance out there, and it's available to many, many people. So Utah Housing, we provide down payment assistance to low to moderate income home buyers. They can come to us and we'll lend them those funds to cover their down payment and their closing costs. We also administer some programs for the state that first-time home buyers, depending on their qualifications, can get up to $25,000 towards down payment assistance. I know of a lot of jurisdictions also have down payment assistance. West Jordan has one for their employees. Own in Ogden does if you're buying in Ogden. So different jurisdictions, you want to research and check out different down payment assistance resources out there. It's very helpful for getting into the home, especially in this economy. All right. Any questions? Anything you want to clarify over again, or any questions before we wrap up?
Sorry, can you go over the difference between appraiser and broker again?
Sure. So the appraiser is the person who's going to determine the value of the property. They're going to research just the home itself. They're going to write up a report that will give neighborhood characteristics of the home, so property size, age, any repairs, any improvements, anything that might need to be fixed. They will give a rating at the end. Things that maybe need to be fixed before the home could be purchased or eligible for certain financing, or maybe things that can just be repaired after. They're the ones that determine the value of the property. Now, the broker is the person that's going to match up the home buyer with the financing. So they're going to help you apply for the loan. They'll help you fill out a loan application. And they'll be the ones that will take all of your information, work with an underwriter, get you a loan approval, and match up who the best financing option will be for you to make sure you qualify. Yeah, any other questions or anything else? Okay.
Do you know if Schedule is gonna put all these on their website, your PowerPoints, or?
I think I read that these videos will be made available.
Okay.
And I did mean to put out cards, but I put out cards, and you're welcome to contact me directly if you want any PowerPoints or any other information.
Where are you located?
Sure, so Utah Housing is located in West Valley City, right off of the 201 and Bangerter, kind of by the Sundance, the Discover Building, USANA.
Do you ever come to high schools to speak, like as a guest speaker?
Take my card.
Yeah.
I've got cards right here, please reach out.
Sometimes they get sick of us.
And then I
So,
also, oh no,
Yeah.
we're happy to come and talk and say that education for students to realize this is possible is so important. I've also got another set of cards here that you can reach out to Utah Housing specifically for grant or down payment assistance information, for mortgage loan or down payment requirements, for other information. So you can take each one of those, and don't hesitate to reach out. If you find that these are not available, I haven't provided my PowerPoint to anybody, but if they do ask, then they'll possibly be available. If not, please feel free to reach out directly for that.
Can I say something?
Sure, David, this is David. He is the president and CEO of Utah Housing.
I've been involved in the review and revision of the transit standards for the GFL course like 3 times. The first 2 times as state treasurer, looking at banking and investment, which was all that I did, up until the time I joined Utah Housing Corporation. And then the most recent review, now I'm at Utah Housing, and I noticed there was nothing about housing in the transit standards. And so we added a little snippet. And I was trying to decide, or trying to understand, why had that never been noticed before? And my theory is those of us that were reviewing it, teachers, administrators, financial professionals, speaking for myself, I grew up in a home that my parents owned. And my wife and I achieved home ownership at about the time, well, literally when we got married, at like 29. And so at a certain point, some of us take home ownership for granted. But where we're really concerned is those kids that have not grown up in a home owned by their parents, and maybe they don't even have a shred of vision or hope that they could achieve home ownership. And this is the big thing about down payment assistance. As you talk to your students about investing, you talk to them about it's time in the market, not timing the market, right? Which means get started at a young age, chipping away automatically, and you can save for a stable retirement. It's getting in early, having discipline, and then putting time on your side. That's the trick with investments long term, right? Same with home ownership. The thing that stresses us out at Utah Housing Corporation is there's young people out there thinking they need to spend 5, 7, 10 years building a down payment. When we're just, our average down payment is what, guys, like $20,000? Something like that. And we buy mortgages every day, and we service them at Utah Housing Corporation. We had a record-setting day. It was the last week. We bought $15 million in mortgages in one day. So you read the Salt Lake Tribune about housing, and it's doom and gloom, and it is. It's a tough market. We know it's high home prices, high interest rates. But we have low and moderate income young families who've never owned a home before. And we're, Brad and Carol and their team, they're buying these mortgages every day. And so good things are happening, and people are getting in and they're achieving home ownership. And you probably know, and Carol probably mentioned, the majority of wealth in this country is held in our homes. And the sooner we can get folks started, the better. We don't want young people to be in over their heads, right, and house poor, so to speak. We want them to take on obligations they can afford. But really, really powerful aspect of their long-term financial well-being if they can achieve homeownership at a younger age. And the other thing in this market is managing expectations. Many of us or our parents maybe bought their first home when it was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath on a quarter acre with a nice backyard for big dogs, you know? And now maybe it's gonna be a condo or a townhome that you start with, and then you trade up. But you're putting yourself into the market so you can take advantage of the price appreciation that occurs over time. So, yeah, I just really appreciate the work that you guys do. Getting them when they're young and planting those seeds. I teamed up with the state auditor. We're going to talk about this afternoon, but we did a study of our GFL graduation requirement. We went and checked to see, is it making a difference? And we checked in with kids that have been through the course, and we compared, not only sort of didactic, what do they know, but behaviorally, what have they done? And we compared that with kids that haven't really, had the advantage of this type of learning in high school. There was a measurable difference. It wasn't like, 15, 20%. It was, maybe 5 or 10%, but it was a measurable difference. And we all know that it's not really what our students know, but what they do with that knowledge and how they apply behaviors going forward in their lives. And you guys are equipping them with information to help them make smart choices. It might save their marriage. It certainly can do great things, as Carol pointed out, for their kids in the future, making good choices.
Well, thank you for including the strengths and standards here. That was really helpful.
Okay, good. All right, well, thank you very much, and enjoy the
Thank
conference.
you.